Welcome back to The Complete Creative, the podcast that helps you build a better business as a creative. I'm your host, Russell Nolte, and today we'll be talking with my friend, Chrishaun Keller-Hanna. And the reason I had her on this podcast is kind of funny. I've known Chrishaun for years. She's one of my marketing clients, but I've never really dug in and looked at her past. Then I was listening to a podcast the other day, and who pops up but Chrishaun as one of the guest hosts? So I immediately text her and I'm like, I'm listening to you on this podcast, girl. And she's like laughing and I'm like, this is great. You're amazing. And then I started looking her up and I realized she is a human of note in the book world. Not that we're not all humans of note, of course, but she's done a lot of stuff. So I immediately asked her on the show and started digging into her back catalog. And, well, we have some things in common. Namely, she loves monsters and monster hunters. I love monsters and monster hunters. So we had a lot to talk about. She's also a really savvy business person and an amazing creative. She set up a really successful business for herself, and I brought her on to show you how you can do the same. So hope you enjoy it. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind you that you can head on over to thecompletecreative.com if you like this show and check out all of our other resources. We have tons of blog posts, epic and otherwise, free courses, the archives of this podcast, and a whole lot more. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you are listening to it. All right. Now that that's over, let's get on with the show. I'll talk to you after. Take it away, Chrishaun. Tell us what you're passionate about these days.
My passion is and will always stem from monsters. That's just so you know. But from there, what I've been doing lately that I absolutely love is doing the rewrite to my first cozy mystery, which is a paranormal, which has monsters in it. It works, believe me. And the second thing that I'm really, really getting into is putting together a little side business based on Shaman States of America and all the monster doodles that I do that I've been doing since I was 12 years old. I'm 47 now. And finding an outlet for them, specifically in enamel pins. Now, we talked about this, so you know the enamel pins we're talking about, right?
Oh, yes. I'm very well versed in enamel pins and merch. I actually held off doing merch for many, many, many years because I wanted it to be about the books. But what ended up happening after 3 or 4 years of like selling the same kind of books is people were like, I have all the books. Give me something else and I want to give you money. Give me something else to buy. And so I was like, all right, so now we do pins and lanyards and very small run prints, basically like print to order prints. But yeah, eventually you only have so many books that people can read and they still want to support you. So you have to branch out.
Right, absolutely. And then not only that, but writing a book takes a very long time, at least for me. Writing a 60,000 word book takes about 2 months from concept to a second draft. And then there's editing, and then there's more, and then the rest of it goes quickly because I'm just slow and horrible at first drafts, but that's a different subject. Creating a pen, especially if you're like me, you doodle all the time, is maybe a day from beginning to end. You have to sketch, you thumbnail it, you refine it, you pick your colors, you pick your Pantone equivalents, and from there this is assuming you have the cash, you talk to your manufacturer, send it in, pay your one half off, and then you walk away from it. It's a very easy thing to do. And within 3 weeks, you get the satisfaction of having something physical in your hand. It's closest thing I can get to instant gratification in the field that we're in.
Well, the other thing about pins is that I'm trying to say this diplomatically is most people don't actually remember the book or the things that happen in the book. They remember the feeling that the book gave you and the thing, like this happens in movies too. And so what they want is to recapture that feeling that happened from that book, and to wear a thing that shows that they love it, and to almost, it's a good way to help find tribes of other people who also like the same kinds of things.
Yes, the pins are an emotional touchstone. It's literally, pardon the pun, pinpoints. Um, like you said, that kind of feeling, the emotions that they got, the rush that they got from reading your book, or how much they just love or relate to this one character or a group of characters, or how much they want to ship um, two disparate characters together, whatever it is that emotional touch point. And I have gone to enough conventions and gone through the art alley, and I've seen fangirls and boys alike squee when they're like, "Oh my God, you've got one foot, or you've got," and they pick it up and they just love it, and they'll just tell you everything they love about this character, or everything they hate about this another character, or what their hopes are for the character. In that one item, they pour in a lot of emotional investment. I guess you could say the pen itself is the physical embodiment of their emotional investment in your work, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it's something that you don't really understand at the beginning of your career, or especially when you start selling whatever it is, whether it's books or prints or whatever, that you don't understand that, like, years later people will still have a feeling about your work, even if they don't remember what they loved about it, or they don't remember the details of it, and they only remember the broad strokes. And people want to, especially once you've been doing it a couple of years, want to recapture that feeling.
Right. Oh yes, absolutely. Quick question. You play video games, yeah?
Well, I used to. I would like to again, but running three businesses and all.
Right. Don't I know that for sure? If there was one game where you could wipe your entire memory of it and replay it again so you can relive the thrill of it, which one would it be?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's right. And it is connected directly to what we're talking about. That those broad strokes. I'll tell you my answer is Parasite Eve, the PS2 game. Excuse me, a PS1 game. I absolutely love this game. It was based on a Japanese book. They made a movie, then they made a video game out of it. And I absolutely love that game. And if I could wipe my hard drive and play it every year, I would do it. Because other than the actual theme song, I can't tell you why I feel so attached to this game, other than it's good and it's a predecessor to Resident Evil, but there's something about it that I'm just linked to it.
Ah, you said Link. I have a one now. It's Link to the Past.
A lot of people say that.
But it would be hard for me to go back and replay it, because part of my feelings about that game are playing it with other people, and specifically a friend of mine in college who introduced me to that game, and our feelings of doing it, of playing it together. So, and that's one of the interesting things about doing merch, or like that nostalgia feeling, is it's often not about the product itself. It's about like how that product makes you feel, or who you went through that experience with. All of these things, and you mentioned fandom too. A lot of those fandoms are built around, like, my best friend brought me into this fandom, and then we watched it every night, and then we talked about it all of the time, and then me and three of my other friends would geek out about it all the time and go to this show and we dress up as the characters. But it's is part of that, at least, is not the product itself. If your friend had pulled you into a different fandom, that whatever part of it that's about the community built around it is going to remain. So when I'm doing merch, or like, my whole thing is about building community. In fact, we have a little pin, a wannabe press pin, which is my company, which is our little bee, Melissa. And like, when people buy from us or have bought from us in the past, like, I just like giving that pin to them for free, because it's marks you as part of the community.
And that was the reason why, and I imagine this is the same for you, why I shied away from doing merch for so long, because my when I was thinking about my book business, at first I was thinking of it in terms of, oh, I've got to get big first. right? And I was wondering, would these items even mean anything to anybody if I introduce them at this point? And I'm starting to see that as I start talking more about shaman stasis, and as I have brought other authors into it, and as I just dive deeper and deeper into other aspects of the business, I find that you can actually help them in creating the memories and associating it, like you said, your friends pulled you into this fandom, right? Part of doing that for us as business people, and I hate saying it like this, but because it sounds sleazy, but this is the truth. Part of that is creating an experience and a memory, their first memory, that they can go and build others with.
I'll tell you, one of the things that had the effect on me was football. I did not realize how much football was about me being with the people and watching it. When I don't really have people to watch football with. I have people to do other things with, but like nobody in my friend circle really watches football, and so I haven't watched it for years. I mean, for other reasons than just that no one like I made a hard break with it. But part of the reason why it was so easy to make a hard break was it just didn't do anything for me. So I think what you're like, I like what you're saying because it is possible to have that kindle of a memory start early, like immediately when somebody, even if you only have a few fans, whether you're going to do pins or you're going to do merch or you're just trying to fan that spark or that ember. Starting it early is one of the things that I wish that I had done, because suddenly I have tons of people, hundreds, thousands of people who have talked to me in like the first couple of years where I really didn't do this, who've like, oh, I remember that book, I loved it, and then, but they have moved on from it to love other things, so they have like a memory, but it's not fresh enough where you can latch on to them as easily as if you found that person when they first read the first book and you just kept it going, because people's memories are really really yes, they are, and you know, they love something and then it goes away and suddenly they don't know about it, or they find it years. I mean, how often have you found something on Netflix that you loved when you were a kid and you're like, oh, cool, and then you move on and you never think about it again?
Yes, I do that a lot.
Yeah, me too. Or I have something I'm like, I'm going to put that on my list because I remember loving that. And like, there was a Rocco's Modern Life movie that just came out on Netflix, and I was like, Rocco's Modern Life, I can't wait to watch that. And like, I know that in like a year and a half, I'm going to be like, Rocco's Modern Life, when did this come out? It's like, it's something I loved when I was younger, and if that flame had kept going, it would have been easier to keep me instead of having to draw me back in.
Right. That was exactly, I did the exact same thing last night with what was on Netflix. I had a spare hour or so, and I'm flipping through, and I see, oh, Rocco's Modern Life. I remember that. It was cool. But Tom told me I need to watch Wu Assassin, right? And he's on my text like, dude, have you seen the first episode yet? I'm like, I'm working on it. And as I'm watching it, we're texting back and forth talking about, oh my God, it's Chibs from Sons of Anarchy. And oh my God, Choo Choo Chan is in it. And oh yeah, the guy who played Ryu in Street Fighter. And those are the things that having that community, having not feeling like you're the only one who remembers that Uncle Six used to be Ryu in the Street Fighter movie, or that there was a Street Fighter movie, right? having that having that community, or at least having that one other person to geek things off of, is really big. And that's the reason why finding the niche or finding that place where those things can incubate is so important, because Wu Assassins is a new show, right? And I didn't know that show from anything else. But the reason why I got sucked into it from with my friends and into this fandom is because of a show called Into the Badlands, right? Which is a post-apocalyptic martial arts high action wire swinging martial arts show. And all of my friends in my immediate circle love martial art movies. Love them, right? Did I lose you?
No, I got you. You just were on a roll, so I was letting you go. No, I understand. I mean, my thing's not martial arts movies; it's animation, but same principle applies.
Right. Oh, we do have the section of animation as well, the YouTube and also the Netflix version. But in this specific example, it was like this wider market, but just kind of ratcheted down into something very specific, and then it linked from something like Street Fighter to into the Badlands into Wu Assassins because it's let me see if I can try to explain this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm going off a tangent, then off a cliff.
Please feel free to do that.
Okay. Um, if you find yourself jumping into a fandom and you can relate to it enough that it gets people's attention, you'll find that people will follow you, especially if you're very enthusiastic about it. You open up the doors and tell people why you loved it so much. If you're willing to nearly be a fool and geek out about, oh my God, this is why I love these sort of things. On our Shaman States community page, you'll see news articles about strange monsters that people have found. You'll see a web comic. It's called Conversations with a Monster, where the artist, the visual version of the artist, talks to legendary creatures and asks them for life advice. All right. Is it the same thing as what I write in Shaman States of America? No, but it is related to somebody loves monsters and they want to see them in a non traditional way. And so it's just great. You'll even see pictures of plants that have weird faces and a discussion about um, necrobiology, as in Night of the Living Dead plants. Just crazy things like that. Because a place where we could talk about semi-connected but still awesomely weird things is a place where you're going to get the people who are willing to read your work and share in it. And I'm looking up what her name is Jess Ann, and her comic is called Monstrous Advice. And if you go to the Shaman States page, you'll see a couple of them. We did the Goat Slang, the Squonk, which is also a song by Genesis, by the way, and a few others. We and the other one was necrobotany, not necrobiology, necrobotany.
I have a similar thing with my own page because I post a lot of funny memes about death and dying and things like that, which is a big thing in my books, and like mythology, a lot of mythology and fairy tales, mostly funny memes about it. And because my books tend to be pretty funny, like I had a person the other day just say, nobody makes me laugh as hard as you when I'm reading a book, except maybe Jim Butcher. I was like, well, that's nice. That's a very nice thing for someone to say. But she said, your page is funny and your books are very funny, and they're all about like similar themes. So I think cultivating that fandom is so important for a lot of my stuff is in comics. So my first big hit was an anthology called Monsters and Other Scary Shit, which was a bunch of monsters from cute to scary and everything in between. And then we had our biggest hit so far has been a book called Cthulhu is Hard to Spell, which is, yes, it's love, which is all Lovecraft monsters. And so I post a lot of Cthulhu memes as well and Lovecraft, but it's mostly about mythology and fairy tales and funny things about them, not just anything, but interesting articles. But also I tried to keep my page humorous, but humorous stories about gothy people and death, because that's what the people who read my books enjoy reading about. So, and I also talk a lot about my own issues with depression and anxiety, but also in a funny way, because that's what, like, the troubles, like, I think my point being is it's so important to know what the people who read your books are going through and want to know about, because your own work is not going to get shared a lot.
No.
Probably at first, but if you can latch on to something that's more popular than yours, or be a curator of stuff, suddenly when your book comes out, people are like, well, he curated all this cool stuff, and this book is a lot of that stuff too. Okay, I will try it.
Yes, absolutely. My page, I don't, I have this weird thing with my depression and with my fear because I am really afraid of putting myself out there because I had about almost 15 years ago, I had my entire created work destroyed. So imagine every hard copy of every short story you've ever written, the hard drive backups, music that you wrote, things that you have written and published that you were proud of, all of those things destroyed in an act of anger and malice.
That's horrible.
Yeah, it was. and it was, and it was made even worse by the fact that it was done because they were jealous about what I was doing because I had such passion about it. And you can imagine rebuilding that took a very long time. I think it was another 7 years. Let me think. Yes, I think it was another 6 or 7 years before I wrote something that I would let oh my god, I'm forgetting my phrases that I actually published or let anyone else see. That saw the light of day. That's what I was trying to remember. It was about 7 years before I did that, and then that would have been about 2010, and then it was still several years before I started taking writing and my art on presenting that seriously. Like the reason why I didn't actually publish my first book in 2016 was because I had to get up the nerve to do that, and that fear still sticks with me, right? So I'm saying all this to say that I had a really hard time opening myself up, especially on social media. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. How do you get over that, or do you not get over it and you keep it keep yourself more hidden than the stuff that you share?
A little bit of both. I go through phases. There'll be a time, and we're starting to get into this now. You'll hear me on a bunch of podcasts. You'll see me doing stuff. I will have Facebook Live stuff, and my battery is fully charged. And which each one of these will go down a little bit more. And then when I need to recharge, I totally shut down. You don't hear anything from me aside from maybe an occasional release or an occasional note to let folks know that yes, I'm still alive, and two, yes, I'm still working on stuff. And I'm still trying to find that balance between the two because the cross section of that is also trying to shape my business as a business and being all about the product and all about the marketing and balancing that with me as an artist because I want to do some really ultra niche stuff that no one is going to buy. Right? And so I have to balance those two. And what I find that's helping is putting factual cards about the size of an Instagram post on my Instagram and on the Shaman States community page, where I'm talking about definition, shaman, like, or what are the shaman states? What do they look like? And as I get a few more spoons, it's going to expand into, oh, what shaman state do you live in? Right? What group of U.S. states um, sorry, let me try that again. Depending on where you live, you may be in this certain group of U.S. states that together makes the Shaman State of Texarkana, or the Shaman States of Big Sky, or the Last Frontier, or Kingsland. And that way, it's a way for me to set out a little bit, have people relate to it, respond to it, and still have a little bit of space because it's not that I don't love you. I absolutely love the folks who sit there and comment and talk to me. But I'm also afraid of it. I'm afraid of that loss because it's still, even 13, that's a different situation, but it's happened. I've had a great loss more than once when it comes to my art and it comes to my writing. But even in the past, that still affects me right now. So all that to say is a little bit of both, and I try to push through it by having some distance, but that is a short-term solution to that.
Well, one of the nice things about having a community is that you can get the ball rolling and let the community take the ball and run with it, and you still get credit for starting that conversation.
Right.
That's one of the things that I think people don't understand about. It's very, very hard to start a community that works and like that functions, and it takes a lot of work and effort. But once you've done it, a lot of it is just asking questions, providing things to get the community talking, and then yes, you kind of interject certain things at certain points, but it's more about the community interacting as an organism, and that does give you some space.
Right. And I'm also trying, it's also a matter of finding memes that aren't, oh, you're you're kidnapped. Um, the last character you read is going to save you. I'm like, I don't know. I don't like those kind of memes. Am I just being old?
Well, they're great for engagement. I'm not the biggest fan of them, but I am a big fan of engagement. So, like, and almost any question that you can get what people have read next or last, or what they plan to read next, or like what they're connecting with, builds the connection with you. Like, it's this weird thing where by posting something and having somebody talk about it, it makes them more connected to you, even if you haven't done anything but post the meme.
Okay.
At least, I mean, that's what I have found. I know everyone's mileage may vary, but it's a good, I think it's a good way post those sorts of things to get some distance, because then you're getting what people are talking about and thinking about. It gives you great research to be able to go and look up these books that you haven't found.
Yes.
And it gets like your engagement. The more engagement that you have in any post, the more all of your posts get shared, which is an annoying habit of all of these places like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is. Like, the more people that are engaging with one post means all of your other stuff is going to rise a bit. So I don't post those questions often, but when I do, I know that it's sort of like having the book that you wrote that is your best-selling book, and you designed it to be the book that will always sell, even if it's not the book that you love the most.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I'm going to put this thing out there, and I know that it's going to drive sales to the things that I love more, or that are more me. I don't know. Like, I love all of my work for different reasons, but there's definitely some that I'm like, I literally designed this book to sell. Its purpose was to sell in every respect. And everything I put everything in it to sell. And that book is going to be my heavy hitter.
Yes. This was specifically engineered for sales.
Right. And in that way, like, this post is particularly designed for interaction. And then the interaction is going to help boost all of the other things that I want people to see more.
Right.
It's weird how that analogous is everything. Like, there's always that in every business that I've ever run across. There's always like, this is the heavy hitter. This is our Microsoft Office. This is our Apple iPhone. And this Apple iPhone allows us to make all these other things that we like more, but we don't know. They're probably not going to be a hit. But until we know whether this thing is going to be a hit, we're going to like play with it in the background and like let you just buy the iPhone, and then when something else is ready and it's a hit, then you can like replace it or move it next to the other product or whatever you're going to do. But I think whether it's social media, you have to kind of have that strategy too, where it's like, I know I'm going to get 200 comments on this post because like everybody likes to answer a question, and I like actually going through and reading it and like reading what they say, because like it's interesting for me as a student of sociology and psychology to see what people like are saying and how long their responses are and like how many of them sync up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Those sorts of things allow me to feel engaged with the community even when I'm having a day that I don't want to be in the front.
Yes, that makes perfectly good sense. And it's funny that you say that, because now that I think about that, I think that is the reason why I started doing the pen so much more than last year. Matter of fact, I wish I had started this last year because everybody seems to like them. And everyone likes being part of the creation process. They always want to be able to say, my voice was heard and it resulted in something that became physical, right? And so also, the big hitter for me, I think, will be these pins because they kind of cross the genre, cross past the books, but they also lead to them.
I've never had that experience with the with pins. My experience has always been people that like the books get the pins. Very rarely someone will get the because that's when I do things like that's my thing is books, books, books. I'm always pushing the books. Then some people like pins, so it does hit like I don't know 5 to 10% of the market that I wouldn't normally hit, but I don't display them. They're in just like a little photo frame on my table.
Right.
I don't even have them for sale on anywhere but when I do shows.
Yes, I know that. We had a conversation about that as well.
Well, luckily I have a Kickstarter starting very soon, and they're for sale there. But I mean, there are artists. I know I have an artist who does and an author and creator who does pins, and she kills with pins. But she has it a lot more prominently displayed on her table than I tend to.
Right. And not only that, but because I love monsters, it doesn't have to necessarily be a monster that's in the Shaman States of America series, even though it probably is. Or it is something that I plan for one of my hunt teams to go to either pursue or get aid from eventually. And that's the thing. That's the thing I absolutely love about writing books about monster hunters and monsters and how they relate to one another. It doesn't have to be in the book. It can just be a monster. And folks like talking about the local lore in their area. It may not ever. We will never see the Great Slider in a Shaman States book because I haven't figured out how I'm going to put a huge sperm whale on the side of a mountain in a book yet.
Right.
And that's what the Great Slider is. It's literally a local monster in Colorado that's a big whale that's on the side of a mountain. And if you make it mad or it gets mad at one of its neighbors, it flips its tail and sends an avalanche down the other side. That makes a great pen. Not necessarily a great story, not for me, not in mind yet, but it's something I love talking about. And people will always be like, yeah, I heard stories about that. And you're just like, I'm all ears, eating your bowl of cereal, and you want to sit there and geek about it. It doesn't necessarily point back to Shaman States necessarily, but it once again creates that fandom, it creates that community, it creates that engagement.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's nothing better than listening to than like saying one sentence and then having someone talk for 20 minutes while you don't have to do anything. Like you're like, oh, thank you. I need to recharge. Keep talking. I'm very interested in what you're saying. I just need to sit. I often say this when I do shows, and I'm like talking to them, and I'm like, I'm very interested in what you're saying. I just need to sit down and eat while you're talking. So like, this is like the first opportunity I've had to not be on my feet all day. Mm-hmm. So no, and then they tend to want to get something from you because you're excited about a thing that they're excited about, which is one of the issues that I've had with the release of these Amazon books. But I think the issue that I've personally been having is that Amazon is very impersonal.
Absolutely.
So you never know who bought your books or who didn't unless they contact you. I'm very much used to conventions and Kickstarter and selling on my website where like literally every person who's ever bought from you because they've bought from you. And I'm doing this big Kickstarter this is probably going to be out way after the Kickstarter is over, but for my book, Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, the 5th issue is finally coming out after like almost 10 years since it finished production and 5 years since the first volume was released. And I'm just noticing how much work I'm doing for it. I spent like 3 days prepping the Kickstarter page, and I recorded 2 videos, and like I added tons of imagery to the Kickstarter page, and like I asked a bunch of my friends if I could have if I could use one of their first issues of their comic or a book for them to like entice people to buy early. And as I'm doing this, I'm like, I have literally done this for 0 of my book releases that I've done on Amazon, like literally 0. So maybe this is why.
Because they're not real. And the Amazon buyers don't feel real because you don't know who they are. And this is funny considering we just got finished talking about putting distance between yourself if you don't have the spoons. But there is something to be said about, I know the names of the people who respond to my newsletter. I know the names of the people who buy my books. And I know that about roughly 70% of them have 1 to 2 black cats like I do, right? Those things mean something. And when you're doing a launch for Amazon, and this is leaning more towards the artist side rather than the businessman marketing widget side, I want to know who these people are that are buying the books. Who are the folks who voted yes and then went to the next book and voted again? I want to be able to thank them. I want to be able to talk to them. I want to be able to get their feedback. And it feels so impersonal because you can't get that if they don't leave a review or if they don't um, join your newsletter. But Kickstarter and things like that, I did the first Beauty Bubble book. It was a Kickstarter, and I feel so responsible for them, and I feel like they're my little clatcher because I see a list of all their names. Right? They are real.
As real as and every time looking at that dashboard, I have to be like, these people are real people. That's a real person. That's a real person. That's a real person. That's a real person. And that's a real person. They may be the same person, but I have no idea if they're the same person. All I know is that that's a human who downloaded the book. But I don't do advertising for our books, the books that I launch on Amazon, because I don't do them for the ones I do on Kickstarter. And like, I'm stubborn and I don't think I have enough books out now to do that right now. In this day, August 13th, 2019, where we're recording. And I don't think there's a long enough series that I have out to like justify doing ads. But I have found that people that are successful with ads talk about them in the way that I talk about building a community and like doing the big push and doing the up. And
right.
I feel like they are because you can't launch every 3 weeks or every month in the manner that I launch on Kickstarter. People replace that enthusiasm building with advertising.
Right. And that's exactly what they do. Well, that's exactly what advertising is for. It is to create communities, create market share, and keep buzz and excitement about a product alive between the actual releases of the product, or to keep it alive for something that's just been around. Coca-Cola has been around longer than our parents have been alive. I'm making an assumption about your age, but I think I'm right anyway. So Coke and Pepsi has been around much longer than our parents have been alive. McDonald's has been around longer than we've been alive, right? But there's still advertisements about it. Why? Because they still want to associate that feeling of getting that Happy Meal when you were 6 years old. They still want to associate that feeling of sitting around and hanging out after a good workout, or you just went to the amusement park, or after the movies and you're having a Big Mac and fries, or the first time the Chicken McNuggets came out and you tasted sweet and sour sauce for the first time. They want to associate themselves and refresh that memory in your mind, and they do that through advertising.
That's what I think this is all about, right? It's like sort of like the crux of this whole conversation is associating your work with positive feelings, with the positive feelings people will have reading it or have had in the past. So, like, that's why people say, do you like John Grisham and Tom Clancy? Because you're like, I do. Wow, those give me a positive association that this will be like that. And I can remember how much I love that book. And maybe I'll love this book the same way. Or people that say, I did like book 1. I'm going to buy book 2 also. And if you can get people to associate your work positively with an experience that they have had, your job is just so much easier.
It really, really is. It's that social proof shorthand. It's a social shorthand. Let's call it that.
Right. I mean, that's why social proof is so important, because you're like, oh, Johnny recommended this book, and I remember when Johnny recommended another book that I loved, and so yes, I'm going to trust Johnny. But it's the same mechanism, whether it's the social proof or advertising or newsletters or whatever the thing is. My whole job, I feel like, as an author, outside of making the book and developing the product, once you develop the product, your job is mostly like any other advertising and marketing job and any other business where you're just selling the product. It's the widget's different and the specific mechanisms are different, but the product and customer relationship is the same.
Absolutely.
I think that's why BookBub does so well while nothing else really does well, because people positively associate their experience with BookBub and the books that they buy from BookBub, and people don't have that positive association with other newsletter places where you can buy. So BookBub is a place that you can buy a place in their newsletter. They send out millions of newsletters a day, and if they select you, then you will be able to run in their newsletter, and it's probably the only really like consistently effective place to buy a place in someone's newsletter. I don't know if you agree with that.
I absolutely agree with that. And the reason why I agree with that is because the shorthand, the social shorthand they have developed for themselves is that we don't just take anything. It used to be when BookBub came out, I'm talking about from the jump, they required 10 reviews, minimum 4 stars. Your cover had to be on point. You couldn't have any editing errors. They went and they looked through all of this and they rejected a lot of books. There has been millions and millions of stories of folks gnashing their teeth. Why am I such and such a set to my book? Why won't BookBub? Because they have established that this is our high standard. And if we offer people a high standard, if we offer people a high standard, we let them know there's a high standard. We let them know that we have rejected a bunch of books. That's social shorthand for this must be good.
But also then the books that are in their newsletter are actually good and people buy them, and then they buy and they enjoy that book, and so they buy it again and again and again until they're buying without even thinking about it, just because the cover looks good. Because that's the power that BookBub has in positively associating their experience with purchasing a book, which is what nobody else has.
Right. Most of the places, in my experience, even those that have similar standards, they just don't have the weight that BookBub has, because BookBub has spent a lot of time, energy, and yes, advertising, letting people know that we have thought about your reading experience. We care about your reading experience. And here are these things that are carefully curated for that. Whereas a lot of them, it's pretty much, these are the folks that are new in this certain genre, right? There's a difference between those two.
There is, and there's a difference between most authors don't think about this. And I think, or creative people don't spend nearly enough time thinking about the experience that people have and what will keep them coming back.
Yes.
In fact, I just talked to a friend of mine the other day about a problem that she was having at work. And I said, well, she was having problems like getting people to do more and more projects with her at her job. Like, she's quite a large job, like pool of people that she can work in. And her department was having problems getting people to like do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, how many projects that she needed them to do. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, what are you doing to make sure that they're happy enough to do the second project? And she looked at me stumped.
Right.
I've never even thought of, like, she's like, I thought that I was doing them a favor by letting them participate, but like they're doing me the favor. And I was like, yes. And it's the same thing when you write books or sell paintings or whatever. It's like, it is like you are on some level doing them a favor by having this book come out and making it and having something that they will love, but you have to do the work.
You never act like the customer you're doing the customer a favor. Never you do that. You always make it, like my grandmother says, you always make them feel like it was just for them, and you never make them regret taking a chance on you.
Right. So This is how I often pitch our books, especially at shows. I say, hey, do you like monsters? And they say yes. I say, then look at all of these things that I made for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, I was like, just for you. Like all of these books are made for you. There are different flavors of monsters and monster hunters and things. But like these were all made with you in mind. And I literally, when I'm writing something or creating something, think of people in the wannabe press audience. And I'm like, well, this person will like this, and so will this person. And like, there's that. I just can't overstress how important it is to for your, even for your own mental sake, because like creating in a vacuum is very, 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 very hard. It's hard enough when thousands of people like your work and like buy your work and tell you that it's great. Mm-hmm. When you don't have that, it's nearly impossible. And I've been on both sides of that equation.
So have I.
It's a lot easier to say, oh, look at all these people who kind of grok to the same stuff that I do. This is so cool. Uh-huh. And now it's like they fuel you. Or like when I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to write another book. They're like, no, writing another book in this universe. And I'm like, okay, I guess like if like Ichabod only came about because for 5 years people have said, please make more Ichabod. Thousands upon thousands of people have been like, please make more. Please make more. And I'm like, okay, we're going to test it. I'll do a second arc. And it's up to you now. I'm making this for you. If you actually love it as much as you have told me you love it, then buy it. And then I'll keep making it. But it's on you, the community. And that makes, we're doing novels now, and there's nowhere near that community for my writing as novels as there are for my comics, because 10 years and thousands of fans have like bought our books in comics and not in books. And like the books, man, are real lonely. They're lonely because there's just not as many people in that community. Most of the people in that community are also in the comics community because they buy both of our things.
Right.
I can tell you, like, making more comics and more of our most popular books is a whole lot easier than making the things that have no fandom behind it.
Oh, don't I know that? Don't I know that? And that's where putting all these things together is so important, because novels are hard to make and novels are hard to sell. Right?
Absolutely.
They take time and they take energy. And then after you've done all of this, you've worked for the 6 months to produce this book. Or in some cases, if you are in an industry or you came from an industry where writing was a big part of your job, you can probably pump out a book a month. But still, that's wear and tear, right? And it takes the reader a long time to ingest it. And then you got to find another one. And then you got to write another one. And you have to write another one. You have to keep on doing this for an extended period of time. That 10 years to you for the comics probably went by a lot faster than the last year of writing that novel, because you had more gratification about seeing the actual pages being created and then the book being created and then talking to people. Whereas in writing a novel, it actually is in a vacuum, because it's you, maybe a podcast in the background, your cat trying to tap on your keys, and your computer for a very long time.
Yes, I wrote 20 books in 20 months. It was
I remember that.
It was quite the laborious process. And yes, it's so much different to make something with other people, whether it's even just the other creator. And like the hardest thing to do is to release a book and have nobody care. I know the last 6 months have not been fun. They have not been fun at all compared to when I do a comic book and like suddenly literally everybody I know is talking about how awesome it is.
Well, I don't think that no one cares. I think you don't know that they care because you don't know who they are.
Right. Well, and there's just not the community. There's not people, hopefully in the not too distant future, there's a bigger community of novel people, and then maybe it will be equally as fun. But I don't know. I'm not one of those people who loves writing. Like, I love having written and having the product, and I love the idea, and the journey between those two things is like a laborious process for me. And so I'm like, wait, I just wrote all of these books, and like,
I hate.
Hi, I'm here. Like, and but But I think it's so funny because literally just saying that, I think that's how most authors think their first book launch is going to go. And they're like, hi, I'm here. Where's the love?
Crickets, crickets, crickets.
Like, where is it? Like, mine was kind of colored by the fact that I had so many comic book fans that I thought it would translate significantly easier than it has. But I do think people go, hi, hey, I'm Russell. I wrote this book. Amazon, come on, where's the millions of people to buy it? And it's nothing. They get nothing. And to then go back and have to do it again and again and again. And even if you're having a successful career, it's going to take
nothing.
5 or 10 books probably to at least 5 or 10 books to like really solidify your like stamp on the industry. If you can,
especially if you're writing in a niche.
Yes. I do want to talk about that because you have been, if I listen to your talk this morning correctly, you've been doing this for a little bit more. You've been doing this full time for a little bit longer than a year, and you write in a very difficult and small niche.
Yes.
How you do that, man? How you do that? How do you write in a niche and still make it happen?
Yes, I share space with Larry Correa, yo. I do that. The first thing I did was write.
What niche was that? What bigger category was that?
In a larger genre, and not know I was a niche, and watch it fail, like flames of glory bursting into fire as it comes down to the ground. I was doing high fantasy with the Al-Azhar universe, and it was very similar. And I wanted to write something that would have monsters in it in a situation where it would make sense to have monsters. But the problem was the world building was so complicated for the length that I wanted to write. I didn't want to write more than 60,000 words, but the world building was so complicated, it needed 100,000 word books. And so these would be densely packed stories that folks had to churn through instead of enjoy. And the folks who churned through them loved them. Most folks put them down after 5 or 6 pages.
Okay. Yes. So then how many of those books did you release?
I released 4 total.
4, and just not crickets, but like just not breaking through.
Yes, absolutely not breaking through.
And then what happened?
Oh, okay. Then what happened was that as I'm working on another series in that same universe, I'm getting depressed, I'm getting upset, I'm feeling down because it just isn't responding. People are not responding in the way that I wanted it to. And I had a friend pull me aside. It's like, well, the issue is, number one, you're making it so they have to work. Readers shouldn't have to work to understand who you are and what you're all about, number one. Number two, the world building was excellent, but it was hard to understand. It was hard for people to relate to very quickly. There was nothing that they could connect Al-Azhar universe to. And honestly, I don't think there's another matriarchal alien society that has 5 different kingdoms and a match system like mine, honestly. And so the advice to me was that find the one thing that you absolutely love about that series, and then make that the cornerstone of of another universe. Try it again, but pull out the thing you absolutely love and make it ultra relatable, right? And I'm thinking about that. I was like, what is the thing that I absolutely love? Monsters. So love monsters. It will always be monsters. And what's the most relatable thing that I can think of? What do you think the most, when you talk about people, when you talk to people, what is the first thing that, first way that you can gain relationship with them, Russell?
For me? Oh, well, it's Monster Hunters. It's my Monsters and Monster Hunters. That's my thing.
Right. But let's ratchet it out a little bit more. You're meeting somebody for the first time and you ask them, hey, what's your name? They give you a name. Oh, great. You introduce yourself. And don't you ask them where they're from?
Oh, yes. There you go. That's thank you for spoon feeding that to me. Yes, I do.
Oh, that's okay. I've learned these lessons. Um, and you ask them where they're from. And you show interest in where they're from because you truly are interested. And then they tell you about why they love or why they hate where they live. If it is, even if there's their house, the neighborhood, the state, whatever. As a Texan like me, it's about Stars and Stripes Forever. We are all about Texas, right? And so I around the same time I received a gift of a map. It was a map of the United States. And instead of showing their capitals, it showed their actual state monster because every state has one.
Yes, I believe I've seen that map.
I love that map. So the original idea was to have a team of a mother and two daughters travel from state to state hunting these monsters so they can mark it off on their map of their own, right? Highly relatable. We can understand mother and daughters build their relationships through hunting monsters, right? From the back of their trunk.
Yes, I believe I've seen a television show very similar.
Yes. I tell folks that one of the things that I tell folks about shaman states is that it's like supernatural without the credit card fraud. Because folks understand that, right?
Yes.
Folks understand that. All right. So I looked at this. I was like, there's going to be 50 books in this series. I was like, oh my goodness, that's a lot of books. That's a lot of work. So I kind of set that aside while I tried to figure out how to make it more manageable. Then I found this book series called Bubba the Hunter, Bubba the Monster Hunter, Bubba the Monster Hunter by John G. Hartness, which I absolutely love and I absolutely recommend. If you haven't read him, it's hilarious. They're short, fun to get into and out of, and they have monsters, right? So the thing about Bubba is that he was a regional monster hunter for the state of Georgia, right? And I thought of, well, the Georgia and South Carolina and North Carolina area. I was like, what if there was a boundary around a group of states, and it was how they hunt monsters, and the monsters that they would encounter are based by their culture. Because if I order a plate of ribs in Memphis, it's going to be very different than a plate of ribs in Ohio, and much different and far superior plate of ribs if I go to Texas, because I'm Texan and we're all about them ribs and brisket. But you see what I'm saying, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So from there, I took out a map of the United States and I drew big lines around sections, leaving Hawaii and Alaska their own. And I said, these are my territories. And I'm going to take each section and I'm going to write about the monsters in the place where you live. Right.
Right.
And that was the start of Shaman States of America. It was built on.
I mean, that sounds like a very different process, but I love how it came from like this failure and then someone said like, why didn't you do this? And it just started. And now this series is so much more relatable.
Yes, absolutely relatable. And it's fun. And everybody who reads it and everybody who writes in it, because there are, I have one, two, three, four co-authors in it, and they are actually live in the state or were raised in the state in which they write. Right? Like Katie Brock lives in Detroit. That's Motor Time. James Cyrus Baldwin, who's killing it in Lit RPG right now, but he's writing in Calafia because he lives in the Pacific Northwest. I'm writing in Texarkana because I live here in Texas. W.T. Meadows, even though he lives 20 minutes from me, was raised in Tennessee. So he's writing the South. We're writing about the things that we know, the things that we were raised with, perspectives that only people who live there can relate to. And so when we share these books and we talk about Gatlinburg, and for anybody who lives in Tennessee, they know exactly what Gatlinburg is. And they either have just roll their eyes, or if anything like me, you're just like, I love that place. I love it. It's so gaudy and trashy, but I love it. I love Gatlinburg. Oh my God, I love Gatlinburg. And it has these strong reactions. Once again, associating these strong reactions and these memories to the things that you create, firing them up. And that's what it is about creating a niche. It is having the thing that you absolutely love about it, but also things that fire very specific and very strong reactions. Have you ever been to Gatlinburg? Do you even know what Gatlinburg is?
I just in Tennessee, right?
Sorry, yes, it is. It's in Tennessee.
I think I've driven through it one time, but I've not been to Gatlinburg.
Gatlinburg is a small town in Tennessee that is the home to Dollywood, and it's named after the Gatlins, right? And they have their theater there, and then there's Dollywood, and there's every tourist trappy type restaurant because they have a Dixie Stampede there where they do like full on reenactments with horses and everything. Yes, it is a place. It is bright. It is loud. It has a lot of tinsel and a lot of glitter, and it is wonderful for all the wrong reasons, which makes it all the right reasons.
That's great.
I love that place, and you can tell by the way I'm talking about it that that I absolutely love it.
No, you do. I mean, you need that love to be able to. I always say, if you can't love something 100 and crazy%, there's no chance anyone will even love it a little bit.
Right. And you absolutely have to love it. And that's another key to writing in a niche. And I think that's also the key why some folks do not truly make it when it comes to doing what we do, because they see it as a business. So they throw a lot of books and a lot of money at it, or they chase genres or they chase niches because they think, oh, it's hot now, so let me do this. Um, you cannot you cannot write in a niche successfully any kind of long term unless you're 100 and crazy% in love with it.
Right. I absolutely agree with that. I mean, it's just a different way of building your business. And like you said at the beginning, or maybe you said this off camera, um, you said, most people don't want to write mainstream. Most people want to write in some niche on some level. I always say, God bless Michael Bay, man, or Steven Spielberg. They just happen to love mainstream movies, and they can make mainstream movies.
And even they have a style. Spielberg, he loves the coming of age stories of childhood type things. He loves the things that 8-year-old boys would love, like dinosaurs and going to the past or the future and then having to fight dinosaurs or meeting with aliens. Have you seen Terra Nova, that Steven Spielberg series? Yes, that's all that was. It's the same thing. Michael Bay just like to blow stuff up.
He does, but they have the sensibility where it's like most people are probably going to be Richard Linklater or Jim Jarmusch or Eli Roth, somebody that has that's doing a genre. And even if you want to do mainstream but you don't do it well, there's still a method and a rhythm to doing a mainstream book or a mainstream movie. And if you don't get it right, it's not going to come across. That's why so many movies bomb, because they try to do a mainstream thing, but they usually are taking somebody like Edgar Wright out of some weird little niche and throwing him on, and you're like, no, he needs to he's not going to be able to do Transformers in the way you want to do Transformers.
No, because he's not going to hit the tropes. He's not going to hit the tropes.
Right, and he's just not going to love it as much as his weird little thing. And if you can, I have friends who are very, very successful doing their mainstream books, but they love that genre. They love it. They love reading the mainstream books, and they love everything about their genre, even the ones, in fact, probably more so the ones who are the most successful. They love their genre.
Mm-hmm.
And
ask Chris Fox about his genre. He loves it, and he wants to make not only books about it, but role-playing games, because we're talking about that. That's another passion of mine, is the pen and paper tabletop role-playing game. We love them. I have characters older than my children, and we sat there and geeked out in Chicago about a good hour about how much we love this thing, right?
Right, and if you are in a genre that you don't love, you probably are not going to be able to dominate it. You probably are going to be, because everybody knows.
Right. It stinks through very quickly. But here's another thing too. You keep on saying dominate and blow up and all these things, right? Which is something that we do want to do as businesses. We want to be successful, but that doesn't necessarily mean big. And that's another consideration and another pro tip when it comes to working a genre, working a niche, sorry. The reason why it is niche is because it is highly specific and rather small.
Right.
And so there are examples of things that are rather niche and very small, picking up, blowing up. Stranger Things is an example of that. That is very specific to a very limited range of folks. It was actually these folks, those main characters are around my age, your age. Well, once again, make an assumption about your age. They're probably in their late 40s now, but they were 80s kids. That is highly specific.
Well, I mean, Netflix does this so well where like they have so many of these like niches that they were able to gather people and like there's a few there, there's a few there, there's a few there, but Netflix is not the common thing that most people will never get to Netflix. I mean, most publishers, even when you look at a big one like Tor, like they still have their genre. Like they still publish two genres, like even after many decades of publishing. So I agree with all of the things that you're saying. I think though that we've been at this over an hour.
We have. Oh my goodness.
And I think we should try and wrap it back up for the sake of everybody who's I'm sure enjoying it a lot, but probably on their ride home.
And now you're in your driveway waiting for me to finish talking.
Right, exactly. So this is the time. You know, most people are doing another thing. They're probably like, this is like in the background usually. So I'm going to ask them to
hello,
wake up, come back to me for just a couple of minutes as you deliver first where we can find you. And second, your best piece of advice. It could be something you've given already, remastered for the end, or it could be something completely new you haven't said about how to build a successful career.
You can find me at shamanstates.com, ShamanStates.com. You can look us up on Facebook and on Instagram. We're Shaman States. And you can also see the pins that I've been working on. And then if you keep an eye there, you'll see when I drop my Skillshare courses on how to create world-building concepts, characters, and book Bibles. Those are coming in starting in late August, actually at the end of this month.
Awesome. What piece of advice would you give somebody who is just starting out, or it could even be someone in their career, the best piece of advice that you have about building a successful creative career?
That there is much joy in being small. There is so much joy in that. And when you see people who are huge, just see them as what they really are. Proof that you can do it too on your terms and at your scale.
I love it. All right. Thank you so much for coming on.
It was my pleasure. This is so fun. That hour just flew by. It went by so fast.
So that was Chrishaun Keller-Hanna, and I hope you enjoyed that one. I mean, she is just packed with knowledge, and I mean, what's better than monsters? She writes monsters, I write monsters. So I hope you enjoyed us grokking out together for the past hour or so. If you did, please go check out Chrishaun on Facebook, on her website, and tell her how much you enjoyed the podcast. And make sure to head on over to The Complete Creative and check out all of our great free resources, epic blog posts, free courses, and much, much more. And please, if you haven't yet, subscribe and give us a review. Let us know what you think. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.